Today I'd like to announce the launch of the official Loser Talk satellite. Yeah, way up there in space. I can use it to send and receive signals all across the world. And with this new satellite, I will now communicate via live video with my only friend in the whole world, Jordo from Alberta. Hey Jordo, how's it going?
Kyle? Hey man, how you doing? I'm doing great. Thanks for asking, man. Things are going real well, actually. Can't complain. So it looks like that Loser Talk satellite you were talking about, you actually got installed. Wow, I can actually see this. This is pretty sweet.
That's right. I certainly couldn't do this simply with the power of the internet. And there's no way I didn't just edit these two video clips together to make it look like we're talking.
No, that's not possible at all.
So Jordo, what kind of games have you been playing lately? Anything interesting? Anything cool?
Oh man, I've been playing Tales Symphonia for the GameCube. Check this out, man. Double disc, deuce disc. It's pretty sweet right there. And on top of that, you can play up to 4 players simultaneously. It's a real-time RPG. You get to level up, you get new equipment. There's all these boss battles. It's a great storyline, great characters.
That sounds great. I'd love to play that game. And you know what? Thanks to the power of the Loser Talk satellite, I can. Why don't you reroute and redirect the input and output cables on the satellite receiver box and use the Incineray to teleport the game disc to me?
All right, yeah, let's give this thing a shot. Okay, so I think you do this first, and to Kyle, and here it comes.
Okay, now I'm just going to put my hand up like so and allow special effects to do their work. Whoa! These are cheap effects I could have easily done in Adobe Premiere. Whoa! Okay, time for a jump cut. Oh, yeah. The game has been received. Wait a second. This isn't the game you sent. This is Phelios for the Sega Genesis. Okay, this makes sense to me. I do believe a flying game got caught in the teleporter with Tales of Symphonia. And as a result, we have Phelios. I mean, look at this game. It's basically a scrolling space shooter. Except instead of being in some kind of futuristic vessel, you're riding on Pegasus. And instead of fighting aliens, you're fighting skeletons and centaurs and Medusa. Okay, I can dig this. This is pretty cool. Phelios plays a lot like Gradius or R-Type. You go through stages, shooting through hordes and hordes of enemies, collecting power-ups as you go along, and becoming more and more badass. You can speed up your horse by collecting the speed icons, or you can power up your weapons by collecting the weapon icons. It's all very simple and straightforward. Within 2 seconds of playing this game, I knew exactly what I was doing. That didn't make it any easier, but at least I knew where I stood. The one thing that makes this different from other scrolling shooters is the charge beam. You can just shoot rapidly, but most enemies take more than 1 hit to destroy. So if you charge your sword, you can release a giant torrent of energy. This is kind of a cool mechanic. My only nitpick would be that later on, a lot of enemies take more than 1 hit to destroy, so you're constantly charging and waiting to release it. I think the game needed more swarms of weak enemies, so you could just kind of, rapid fire your way through those, while the larger enemies would pose more of a threat but wouldn't be such a common occurrence. And that wouldn't totally neglect the charge beam mechanic, because you can actually use it to rip through hordes of enemies. So, say you see a line of enemies coming, you charge up your sword and release a mighty blast, and it destroys all of them, and you get extra points for that. It's kind of a cool system. It reminds me of Star Fox 64, when you could charge your beam and destroy, circular formations of enemies. Phelios is unique in another way. I was always under the impression that every single Sega Genesis game had great music. This one does not. This music is terrible. How did this happen? I mean, it's Namco, for Pete's sake. Namco usually knows what they're doing. Wow. So I can no longer say that all Genesis games have great music. The game is presented in a top-down perspective, which makes sense for the genre, but it looks a little weird visually. Some of the enemies on the ground look like they're flying, and some of the enemies flying look like they're on the ground. And sometimes the game goes all trippy, where you're kind of flying diagonally or horizontally, and you're not quite sure what's happening. But it's also pretty intense, so as the dragons are coming at you and fireballs are flying all over the place, you kind of really gotta focus. I wouldn't go as far as to call it bullet hell, but there are a lot of projectiles to dodge. And the bosses in particular are pretty challenging. I thought Medusa was really cool, except after a while I learned that she's extremely predictable. And if you're really powered up by the time you fight her, she's got no chance. But that's kind of the way with these games. You feel all powerful until you take a hit and then, oops, it's all gone. And it's really hard to get back to where you were. Except this game is a little bit different because you can take a few hits. Yeah, kind of weird for a scrolling shooter, but hey, I'll take it. It's also really generous with the continues, so there's no excuse not to get at least a few levels in. Beyond that, you're going to need skill to get any further. The one part that really annoyed me was when the Centaur Pegasus riders come up from behind. So you're trying to fly at high speeds through a tunnel where if you hit a wall it's certain death, and these little buggers keep coming up behind you, flying in these awkward patterns that almost mimic yours, but not quite. And you can try to direct them into the walls, but chances are they're gonna kill you a lot. The story of the game is that you have to save a woman. You just gotta save the woman. And throughout the game, she'll talk to you, using some of the worst voice sampling I've ever heard.
I'm being held in the temple. Save me, quickly!
Wait, what was that? What was that? Huh?
I'm being held in the temple. Save me, quickly!
So, despite being the result of a very convoluted and awkwardly presented transporter accident, Phelios is a pretty good game. I enjoyed it. I may play it again later and really buckle down and try and beat that last boss. Or maybe I'll just go find Tales of Symphonia, which is probably better.
Ninja Gaiden